Hey, welcome back. Let me show you how the functions on that calculator work, because we didn't show you that in the earlier video. So here I have a regular iPhone, smartphone, and there's a calculator function brought up. If I turn that sideways, I'm going to get a scientific calculator. So I'm going to lay this down. So if you look on here, if you get in tight on this, you see a sine, a cosine, and a tangent function. Now, sine, cosine, and tangent are functions of degrees or radians or a numerical value. We have a numerical value. We need to find the degrees that coordinates to that numerical value. So we need to find the inverse. So what we need to do is we need to take our value. We're going to take our value, 7.4375. We're going to divide that by the adjacent, 9.6875, and we get our value of 0.67741 and so forth. Now I can't just hit this tangent function. I need to hit the inverse tangent. I need to get there's the numerical value. I need to get the degrees that coordinates to that numerical value. So I hit the second function button, and that turned to inverse tangent. When I hit this inverse tangent button, I'm going to get my degrees of 37.51. That's how I calculated those degrees earlier. I just wanted to show you that. So it's really easy if you have a scientific calculator or you have a smartphone that has that option. All right, so now we're going to lay this out. So we need our framing square, carpenter square, steel square. And remember, make sure you're on the face of the square. Manufacturer's name is on the face of the square. If you don't know that, you have your body, you have your tongue. Your body's 2 inches wide, your tongue is 1.5 inches wide. Always have the body in your left hand. It wraps around your body. Now we're going to lay this out. Our run value is 9 and 11/16. Our rise value is 7 and 7/16. So I'm going to take this. First thing I want to do is SPF 2x12. First thing I need to do is crown the board. So I'm going to look down my board. I'm going to sight down my sides of my board. I'm going to see where the projections are. The projection is going in this direction. So I'm going to mark that. Crown's facing this way. When I'm doing stairs, I want the crown facing me. So now I have the crown facing me. I'm going to take my carpenter square. I'm going to put my run value at 9 and 11/16. I'm going to put my rise value at 7 and 7/16. So I have a run of 9 and 11/16. I have a rise of 7 and 7/16. I didn't start on the edge of the board. If I start on the edge of the board, I'm going to lose this first part of my step, so I shift it up so I can get another rise in here. And I'm simply going to trace that out. All right, and I'm just going to repeat this as many times as I need to. Now, there's some things that you can do to make this go a little faster. You can buy stair gauges, and stair gauges are little buttons that lock onto your square. And then once you get them set, all you have to do is just simply slide it on up and keep repeating the process. I don't have my stair gauges here with me. I don't really need them. It just makes it go faster. I'm lining that 9 and 11/16 up to where the rise ended at the edge of my board each time. I'm making sure that that's in the right spot, and I'm just simply tracing out these little right angles, working my way right up the board. Always tracing on the outside edge and the outside heel of my square. Okay, let's get a count. We have rise 1, which I haven't drawn yet. We have 1 tread, 2 treads, 1 run, 2 runs, 3 runs, 4 runs, 5 runs, 6 runs, 7 runs, 8 runs. This is the 8th tread. That's why I didn't finish this out. My tread's going to end right here. I need to turn this back and cut this into my wall. So that's my line that I've established right there. I need to have my distance at 9 and 11/16. 9 and 11/16. I'm going to trace that on the back side there. There's the top end of my stairs, the stringer that's going to hit against the wall. Now, I don't want to have this touching or in contact with the concrete. I can put a cleat on the inside, or I could put a cleat on the outside. Because I don't want this in contact with the CMU wall, I'm going to put a cleat on the outside. So I have to make an allowance here to allow that cleat to fit in there, and that allowance is 1.5 inches. The nice thing about your square is this is already 1.5 inches thick. It's made for framing dimensions. So all I have to do is line it up where it was, draw it on the other side, the inside side of my square, and I can scribble out that line. Once I put my cleat in there, this will come back to the right tread width of 9 11/16. Down at the bottom, I need to turn this. I need to put my bottom riser in here. I'm going to turn this. I'm going to draw this line. Now this is where the bottom tread should be, but there's going to be a problem. When I add a riser, when I add my tread material to here, and I add my tread material to here, nothing has changed. I have 7 and 7/16 from this point to this point. When I add something here, no matter whatever that thickness is, and when I add it here, nothing's changed. I simply shift it up. But if I add something here, and this is the finished floor, this measurement is now that much higher by the thickness of that material. So I have to account for the thickness of that material. And then that material we're going to use for the tread is 1.5 inches. So I need to take 1.5 inches off here. But because I'm going to take 1.5 inches off of here, and I don't want this sitting on the concrete floor either, I want this to sit on top of a pressure treated cleat underneath it, I need to subtract the thickness of that pressure treated cleat as well. So I need to take off the thickness of the tread, which is 1.5 inches, plus the thickness of the cleat going underneath, which is another 1.5 inches. So I need to remove 3 inches from this. So I'm taking my tape measure, I'll mark up here 3 inches. And I'm going to remove 3 inches of material from this bottom first rise. So I'll have 1.5 inches from my cleat and another 1.5 inches from my tread. When all that comes back together, the rise will be back to 7 and 7/16 like I want. I don't want this line here. So all I have to do is simply cut this out. Let me show you a cut. We're going to use our circular saw. When you use your circular saw to cut this out, I like to cut out all my individual rises and runs and then clean them up before I finish the cut. So I'm going to take my circular saw, make sure it's nice and straight, everything's set correctly. Wearing your safety glasses. I like to lift my movable fence up to start. And when I cut my line, I'm just going to leave that line. I'm going to stay on the outside edge of that line. I don't want to lose that line. I want to see the edge of it. So I'm just barely taking the line. Stop your cut, don't cross over your rise line, and let the saw come to rest. Remove it, come around, and cut the rise cut. Now the only thing holding this together is a tiny little piece of material in there. You'd be tempted to want to break that out. I normally don't. I let it, if it falls out, it falls out, but if it stays in there, it stays in there. I haven't crossed over any of my lines. I haven't affected the strength of my material in my cut right here. One other thing, when we're done, we got to have a minimum of 4 inches here. In our case, we have 5 1/8, so we meet our code there. We meet our 17 to 18 method. I'm just going to finish cutting these all out, and then after I'm done, I'll cut out the other one which I already laid out, and then I'll assemble the carriage together. The carriage is over here. Let's take a look. Here's a stringer I already cut out. So I have my 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 runs. Rise 1 looks really funny right now. But when the 1.5 inches underneath it and the 1.5 inch tread go on, it'll be back to 7 7/16. These will stay all 7 7/16. So I have rise 1, rise 2, rise 3, rise 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. The last rise goes from this tread up onto the next level, and that's where your last rise comes in. So there's your 9 rises and your 8 runs. We have our minimum of 4 inches here. We have an incline angle of 37.5 degrees. The height of this, when it's all said and done, will come up to the finished floor height of 66 3/4. Right now, it's projected down lower than that because we have to build up on the bottom and we have the last rise in here. So the height of this right now is at 57 13/16. If you did all the math and made the subtractions, and that's where it is, 57 13/16. So you put a level on there, everything's nice and level, everything's nice and plumb, nice right angles. All I have to do is cut out the other 2 stringers, cut out my cleats, cut out my treads, assemble the carriage, probably about another 35-40 minutes worth of work. And all said and done, I have maybe a half hour's worth of time in gathering my materials, maybe another 10 minutes in figuring out the math for this project, maybe an hour and a half total in process of cutting and assembling, and probably about another half hour to put it together. So that's about how long it takes to do this job. Hope you enjoyed it. Stay healthy, stay safe. Talk to you soon. Bye.